Good morning. It's Wednesday, April 2nd. The multi-front war in the Middle East is now 544 days old. I'm FDD Senior Research Analyst Natalie Ecanow, filling in for John Schanzer. Welcome back to the FDD Morning Brief. Israel's counteroffensive in Gaza is back in swing. The U.S. military is giving the Houthis a beating over in Yemen, and the Israelis continue to take out Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. But there's another front deserving of attention: the West Bank. Yesterday, the IDF and Shin Bet said they discovered a bomb-making lab in Tulkarem. Inside, Israeli forces found landmines, explosives, and a welding machine. But wait, there's more. The IDF and Shin Bet have arrested more than 24 of the West Bank's most wanted in the last couple of days. And there's still more where that came from. So stay tuned for another zesty piece of West Bank news coming your way in a few moments. Our guest today is Lena Argiri, who serves as the DC correspondent for Greek public broadcasting. She has plenty to say about relations between Israel and other Eastern Med countries, particularly Greece and Cyprus. Israel's in a tough neighborhood, making alliances with these Hellenic nations incredibly important in many arenas. So tune into John's conversation with Lena in a few short minutes. What I'm about to tell you may sound like a belated April Fool's joke, but it's real. Israel and Qatar are both participating in a multinational air exercise in Greece. The drills kicked off on Monday and are expected to wrap on April 11th. Americans, Europeans, and Emiratis are also involved. This is an annual ritual hosted by the Hellenic Air Force, but the 2025 edition is reportedly the first with both Israel and Qatar on the roster. The timing couldn't be more poetic. As the drills got underway, Israeli police arrested 2 of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's aides in connection to the Qatargate affair. Then the gag order on the investigation was lifted, and we learned that one of the defendants may have passed messages to reporters on Qatar's behalf, spotlighting Qatar's role as mediator in the Gaza hostage talks while downplaying Egypt's. He allegedly told journalists that the tips came straight from Netanyahu's office. So which is the real Qatar? The Qatar over in Greece, or the Qatar entangled in scandal over in Israel? My answer is both, and that's why we shouldn't be trusting the Qataris as far as we can throw them. As John Schanzer will tell you, Qatar likes to play the arsonist and the firefighter. If you're not convinced, let me take you back to 1996. That year, the FBI almost nabbed Qatar-based al-Qaeda operative Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, except Qatari officials reportedly alerted Mohammed and he escaped to Pakistan. Also in 1996, Al Udeid Air Base opened southwest of Doha. That base then played a starring role in the wars launched after the 9/11 attacks that Mohammed went on to mastermind. And now for your headlines. Headline 1. Israel eliminated a top Hezbollah terrorist in Beirut. Yesterday, the IDF and the Shin Bet announced that an Israeli strike took out a Hezbollah operative who recently helped plan a, quote, significant and imminent terror attack against Israeli civilians. A second statement from the IDF, Shin Bet, and Mossad identified the operative as a member of Hezbollah's Unit 3900. Apparently, he was also a card-carrying member of the IRGC Quds Force. Tuesday's strike was the second in Beirut since the Lebanon ceasefire took hold in November. Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar said that Israel acted to thwart cooperation between Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas on Lebanese soil. But that didn't stop Lebanese officials from accusing Israel of breaching UN Security Council Resolution 1701, which called for Hezbollah to disarm and retreat way back in 2006. Ironic, no? Headline 2. Israeli security forces foiled a terror cell in the West Bank city of Nablus. In a joint operation, the Shin Bet, Israel Police, and IDF recently arrested 7 West Bank terrorists who were planning attacks against Israelis. 3 suspects were arrested in January. During that operation, Israeli forces confiscated an assault rifle and approximately $40,000 in cash. The same day, Israeli forces nabbed a 4th suspect who handed over another $20,000. The remaining 3 terrorists were rounded up in February. Now for the juicy part. The Nablus cell had been operating under the direction and funding of Hamas headquarters in, wait for it, Turkey. 3 cheers for our worst NATO ally. And headline 3, the Houthis said they shot down an American MQ-9 Reaper drone. These drones cost tens of millions a pop. They can soar over 40,000 feet and remain in the air for some 30-plus hours. The Houthis said they used a, quote, suitable missile to down the drone over Yemen's Marib governorate, which is under the control of Yemen's exiled government. Over the years, the Houthis have claimed to down some 20 Reapers, 16 of those since October 7, 2023. The U.S. military hasn't confirmed how many drones it has or has not lost over Yemen. This go-around, the military said it was aware of reports that a Reaper was downed, but didn't provide further comment. Of course, this is all unfolding as U.S. forces continue to hammer the Houthis. On Monday, President Trump had some very clear words for those Iran-backed rebels. Stop shooting at us, and we'll stop shooting at you. All right, it's time for John's interview with Lena Argiri from Greek Public Broadcasting. We love to discuss the Middle East on this show, but we rarely explore Israel's relationships with countries like Greece and Cyprus. That's why John sought out Lena to get her perspective on the dynamics between these three East Med nations.
Welcome to the program, Lena Argiri.
Hello, Jonathan. We've been switching roles today. Usually I'm the one interviewing you, not the other way around.
That's right. But I get to interview you today, so thank you for agreeing to do that. We want to talk about Greece and Cyprus and the Eastern Med. So maybe let's just start here about how Greece and Cyprus fit into the Middle East. Why does the Middle East matter to these Hellenic countries, and vice versa? How does Greece and Cyprus fit in?
Into the new Middle East, I would add, Jonathan. The war in Gaza, along with the broader crisis in the region, has further complicated Greece's foreign policy, to start with Greece, especially when it comes to regional relationships. On one hand, Greece has built a strong strategic partnership with Israel over the years, which it cannot and it does not want to lose or risk. On the other hand, it also has solid ties traditionally with Arab countries. So that puts Athens in a tricky position. It wants to stay aligned with Israel, of course, especially given the strong relationship with the new US administration, but cannot afford to strain its relationship, as I said, traditional relationships with key Arab partners due to domestic reasons as well. Within the EU and within international organizations, Greece has generally supported calls for de-escalation in the region. The Greek government has been especially cautious in its public statements because it's really walking a fine line here, trying to keep its strategic partnership with Israel intact while making sure its broader regional and EU interests don't take a hit. Now, let's talk about Cyprus, because you said Cyprus as well. It's a difficult balancing act for Cyprus as well, to navigate at this moment this explosive environment while maintaining its relationship with both Israel and other countries in the region. And don't forget that Cyprus has excellent relationship with most of the countries in the region. So yes, it's a complicated new environment that the two countries are trying, to find the new alliances, new balances to adapt.
Why do the Middle East countries care about Greece and Cyprus? I mean, we see the involvement of Saudi Arabia, you see the involvement of the UAE. The Eastern Med is far from there. It's not the Middle East, right? This is not an Arab region. So why do they care? Why do they want to be involved with these Hellenic states?
Because I think that both of these countries have proven over the years that they can very well manage relationship with different actors, with different players, with different countries, with opposing interests in the region, and they can maintain this relationship, and they can talk to everybody, and they can try to find solutions. And they position themselves sometimes in the middle of different and conflicting interests, and this is something that other actors in the region really respect.
All right, well, now let's introduce the United States into the equation. We have these processes that we call the 3+1. Tell us a little bit about those.
So the 3+1 partnership between Greece, Cyprus, Israel, and the United States has become a key platform for regional cooperation, not just in energy security, Jonathan, but also in defense and broader strategic stability in the East Med. What started as a trilateral partnership focused mainly on energy collaboration quickly evolved into something bigger when the US got involved as a strategic supporter. And that wasn't by chance. The US recognized that Greece, Cyprus, and Israel are among the few stable, democratic, and reliable allies in a region that is so unpredictable and so volatile, even more today than back then. So with Washington's backing, the 3+1 framework gained even more weight. And there are definitely some challenges ahead. One big question is how much attention the new US administration will actually give to this framework moving forward. And on top of that, of course, the war in Gaza has completely reshaped regional dynamics and pulled Israel's attention in other directions. So it remains to be seen how things will play out moving forward.
Yeah, and I think we've heard at least rumors of possible joint patrols For example, in the East Med, Greece and Israel joining forces. We'll talk about that, I guess, in just a minute and why they would need to do that. But maybe let's just broaden the aperture for a minute. And you've got, Greece and Israel and maybe to a lesser extent Cyprus. A lot of people talk about joint interests and values of these countries. And I understand that Greece and Cyprus need to be careful because they have relationships with the rest of the region. But it doesn't feel like as much of a strategic partnership when you look at some of the other countries in the Middle East. With Israel, it feels deeper. It feels more rooted in maybe Judeo-Christian values. Is there something else that binds these states together?
Jonathan, it doesn't feel bigger. It is bigger. And this changing environment, this strong relationship, I would say, stands out as one of the few stable elements. It has really held steady, driven by shared regional concerns like energy security, like counterterrorism, and of course by the common broader goal of maintaining geopolitical stability in the East Med. Over the years, we've seen this partnership grow stronger, especially in terms of military cooperation, where they've really stepped up with joint military exercises, sharing defense technology and working together on intelligence sharing as well. A big part of this relationship has also been the last years about, dealing with Turkey's increasingly aggressive behavior in the region, whether it's over energy exploration and projects that we can talk about later, or broader regional tensions. Greece and Israel have found common ground in how to deal or how to try to deal with Turkey's actions. And then you add, of course, the trilateral cooperation that we just talked about. And, that makes this partnership of major importance for both countries. And I hope that in this evolving environment, this relationship, along with Cyprus, of course, will continue to be valuable for the new U.S. administration, Jonathan.
Yeah, I hope so too. So let's talk about Turkey, because I think this is probably one of the more complex topics that we can discuss. Obviously, the history between Greece and Turkey is not a great one. The Ottoman Empire was not kind to Greece. And then we, of course, see the evolution of modern Greece as a nation state, and I think they pull out of the Turkish orbit. But now you see neo-Ottoman aspirations today playing out in the East Med, where the Turks are claiming dominance, claiming control, even sovereignty over international waters, and this is all happening amidst or against the background of a NATO alliance that Turkey and Greece share. Then, of course, we see Turkey supporting Hamas in Gaza. We see Turkey supporting the HTS or Al-Qaeda government in Syria. Seems to be a lot of concern right now about Turkey's policies, Turkey's malign activity. How is Greece navigating this right now?
First of all, to really explain and understand the full scope of Turkey's challenges, we would need several morning briefs. But for those who haven't seen your recent hearing before Congress, I definitely recommend giving it a watch. You laid out in just a few minutes, the answer, actually, the serious risks Turkey presents to the region. And if I may, because this is the latest challenge, I'd like to zoom in on Turkey's attempt to position itself as part of the solution in the new European security framework. The EU unveiled its plan, which is in a lot of ways limits the role of countries like Turkey. But as we know, there's often fine prints that might tell a different story. So it remains to be seen. What's even more concerning is the timing of Imamoglu's arrest. It happened exactly when Turkey was trying to draw closer to the EU and present itself as a partner that needs to.
And you're talking, when you say Imamoglu, you're talking about the chief opposition leader in Turkey, just for context.
And I think that this arrest should definitely raise even more red flags in Europe. Turkey is not a European nation in any sense, so why should it be considered part of Europe's security framework? It's really beyond my understanding. And Turkey's action and alliances are far away from the values and priorities that define Europe. It just doesn't align with what the EU stand for, and trying to integrate Turkey into that environment, into that space, is a waste of time, if you ask me, especially when its behavior constantly and systematically undermines the stability Europe is trying to protect.
There's a story that's floating around right now that suggests that the Trump administration is trying to end a crisis that has been ongoing now since the last Trump administration. The Turks acquired the S-400 air defense system. This is a Russian-made advanced air system that, if activated, would potentially pose a significant cyber threat to NATO, to the United States. In other words, Turkey's a NATO ally. We've got NATO bases in Turkey. If our F-35s, for example, were to be flying anywhere near these systems, they would be able to pick up certain technological signatures. They would be able to actually convey perhaps information back to Russia. What we're hearing now is that this administration may simply suggest that Turkey destroy an element or two of this system. And then as a result of that, we would pave the way to sell Turkey F-16s, or maybe even let them back into the F-35 club. I've got to imagine that's not sitting well with Greece right now, is it?
Of course, you're right. So yes, indeed, we recently had that phone call between President Trump and Erdogan, and right after it ended, literally right after, the Turkish presidency announced that they discussed the possibility of lifting the Qatar sanctions, the return to the F-35s program, and even a potential visit to the White House by the end of April, really soon. So we know that these are clearly key objectives for Ankara. Since then, however, the White House hasn't commented at all, despite our repeated requests. So we don't know what the White House says about this phone call. From what I understand, these issues were indeed on the table during the conversation, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's some kind of mutual understanding, Jonathan, between the two presidents. I also wouldn't be surprised at all if we see, as you said, some developments on this front soon. And I think that what we will see in the future is a new chapter, in a way, in the relationships between the two countries.
Let's hope that we hold Turkey to account. If we are revising that relationship, it would be a lot smarter, in my view, that we make sure that Turkey has limitations in terms of some of the aggressive behavior, problematic actions that it's taken. Last question before I let you go, Lena. Just a question about energy. Energy looms large in the Greek-Israel-Turkey triangle, let's say. What's happening on the energy front right now?
So as I mentioned before, the obstacles that Turkey is raising to energy projects in the region, and the latest example is the pressure, to put it correctly, the threats against the Great Sea Interconnector. And the Great Sea Interconnector project, for those who don't remember or probably don't know, is a major undersea electricity cable designed to boost energy security and lower electricity costs by connecting Greece, Cyprus, and Israel. It's a huge project, a very promising one that had the full support of the previous administration. We're not exactly sure how this administration views it, but we have no reason to believe that it might think differently. So the project ended up stalled for months exactly because of Turkey's military threats. I don't know if you remember the incident, the crisis near Kassos last summer. Anyway, to make a long story short, as of today, the Great Sea Interconnector is still in limbo because exactly of Turkey's behavior. The latest reports from Athens suggest that Greece is now ready to restart the project, but we'll see. Israel seems to be on board, but of course, given the current situation, this is not its top priority. So Greece's foreign minister, Mr. Geropetritis, said recently that despite all the setbacks, we will be on track, and the project will be go forward as planned.
All right, we're going to leave it there. I want to thank you, Lena Argiri, for joining us today on the FDD Morning Brief.
Thank you, Jonathan, for having me.
Okay, here's what FDD has on tap for you today. FDD is hosting an event tomorrow called Israeli Innovation and Defense Tech, Strengthening Ties and Regional Normalization. My colleagues Eyal Hulata and Brad Bowman will join top voices affiliated with Israel's startup world to discuss how innovation is fostering regional partnerships. Check out the live stream on FDD's website at 10 a.m. Eastern. On 69X Minutes, FDD's Lieutenant Colonel retired Jonathan Conricus, former IDF international spokesperson, breaks down Iran's nuclear ambitions and Israel's preparations should the clock strike midnight. No spoilers, but let's just say Iran isn't exactly laying down its weapons. Lastly, don't miss a CSIS piece by my colleague Rear Admiral retired Mark Montgomery and Benjamin Jensen of Futures Lab on the Russia-Ukraine naval ceasefire in the Black Sea. They emphasize the need for a multi-layered coalition maritime force to maintain stability and deter Russian aggression. And that's all for now. If you're craving more information, check out the expert analysis on our website, fdd.org. Read our quick takes on X at FDD, or take a peek at our Instagram and YouTube channels. And please consider supporting our mission with a tax-deductible donation at fdd.org/invest. We so appreciate our donors for helping make this work possible. Tune in Friday for another episode of the FDD Morning Brief. The news keeps on, well, newsing, but don't worry, we're tracking it all very closely and we'll choose Friday's guests accordingly. Until then, I'm Natalie Ecanow, signing off for FDD.